complained about that foot, or ankle hurting him. You would think that if it hadn't been healed well enough.
Yeah.
Well, usually, yeah, people heal at different rates, so, he might have been a quicker healer than...
Just cracked me up.
It broke.
We were in, when I was grown up, we were in the RV going somewhere, and he slept in the top thing, and we slept on the bottom thing, and he fell off the ladder, and there was a pipe, and it went up his back, and he had this huge, you could see fat, you could see, and I'm going, we gotta get you to the hospital. And Dad's going, no, it'll be fine.
Just rub some dirt in it. Some spitting dirt in it, and it'll be fine.
But he didn't do anything about it.
No, you had to man up.
Jeez. Crazy man.
I loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did well by us.
Sure did. A good man.
I can remember the good old days when before you were born.
You ruined it all.
Those were the good old days.
He came home from the service and got a job right away, and the only thing is that housing was impossible. Absolutely impossible.
Because they had a bazillion men coming back from the war.
And so we stayed at Aunt Collings. We slept in the attic. Remember that. And it wasn't finished. We just walked up and they just had enough wood to put a bed. Kind of.
Across the rafters.
Yeah.
Wow.
We stayed there, and then I don't know whether it was somebody from work or not, but we finally found this place on Saddam Street. Do you know that place is just completely a different building now?
I wouldn't be surprised, because the pictures I've seen wasn't looking too good when we were there.
Well, yeah, they took out the front porch. I don't know why they would do that, but it's just straight up and down now, and lots of dirty little kids running around the street. Zabos was still there.
Who's?
Zabos, the little grocery store on the corner.
Well, I was a baby. I wouldn't remember.
Well, yeah, you were young.
I can remember you telling me this story about Dad coming home and paddling you because you were sitting on the porch with the baby doll and you were supposed to be watching me, and he said, you never take the baby out. And he walked up and saw you playing with your baby doll, and he
felt bad about that.
Turned into a gorilla.
Yeah. It was, when she was just really...
A little baby.
You could, if you had a doll wrapped up, that it might look like a person. Oh, I'll tell you, that probably was the last time he ever spanked me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he didn't spank.
Sounded like it affected him more than you.
And he could hurt me worse with words and looks.
Yeah. You never wanted to disappoint him.
Oh, yeah.
And Mom, poor Mom. Mom could scream and yell and get the belt, and she claims she never hit me with a belt, but she did. Occasionally. And
well, I can remember it probably, and I think that this had something to do with her mental situation, because she did go into the hospital. But yes, she did. But it was because you would not come home after school.
Well, I was just a little brat and horrible. I had a will of iron, and she wanted me to do. Although she did teach me well on one thing. I came home and she wasn't there. I came home from school and she wasn't there. And she didn't come home, and she didn't come home. And I called everybody I knew, you know.
How do you like
I
it,
remember
huh?
calling Dottie Chattel
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "Is Mom there? Can't find my mom." And, you know, Dottie said, no, I don't know, you know. Well, she was there. She was drinking tea with Dottie while
While teaching you a lesson.
while I was having a nervous breakdown, but she did. I remember
You
that.
understood then.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta
Yeah.
let them experience it. Otherwise, if you tell them it over and over, they won't get it. If you touch that stove, it's hot. But, huh? I know it now.
Yeah.
We've all done it. We've all done
So anyway, I remember that.
it. And when you do it, you don't get to say anything.
Because they told you.
That's right. You can walk around with sore fingers or a sore hand or, you know, whatever the thing was. It's like, I remember when Jeff was, we lived in Colorado, and I had a fishing knife. And I told him never to touch my fishing knife because it was so sharp.
Mm-hmm. You look at it, it hurts you.
Yeah. And he sliced himself good. And he ran across to where Lisa's friend was. Lisa was over there. And he wanted her to fix it. And of course,
You can't fix that.
Before you
he's
found out
only
about
14 or 15 years old. And she said, I told you so. I had to take him to the hospital and get his hand sutured. And I told him, you did that and you hurt yourself and it cost me money to take you to the doctor and stuff. And you know, he took his own stitches out.
Oh,
Because he
didn't want to go back to the doctor.
Have him take him to the doctor again. He didn't want to listen to how much money it
The lecture.
cost me.
I can understand that though. I didn't want to go back to the doctor to get stitches. I'm like, really? They're falling out. I could just. Why waste all that time waiting in the doctor's waiting room, and then nurse comes in and just go boop boop done. But it takes you an hour and a half to get the boop boop done.
When did you have stitches?
When I had an operation on my hand.
Oh. When was that? How old were you?
I was working, so
Okay, so
17.
a lot of times I miss things in their childhood that they never told me
We
about.
love reminiscing in front of her, and she's like, "Where was I?"
And then my nose was falling off my face.
You were right there. You saw us. You waved.
Lisa's funniest thing that she had told me, you know, years after.
Mm-hmm.
I had a field in the back of my condo before they go. And I told her when she started dating, I did not want her to go any place except on that road behind the house because, you know, it was close to, but it wasn't that busy. Apparently, she and her first husband, before they got married, they were necking out the back. And the police came by and told them to get out of the car, and they checked their IDs and whether there were any beer cans and stuff like that. Okay, the policeman looked at her and he said, okay, you can get back into the car. And she thought he said, get in the back of the car.
Oh.
And here she is,
So she's walking over to the patrol.
When she came home, because she was sure that was what the policeman said, and she didn't want.
That'll give him a good
Mess
scare.
with the policeman. Tell what he tells.
You can't neck when one's in the front seat and one's in the back seat. Oh dear. Yeah, she said that I don't know when, but she talked to Jeff, and she said he apologized for not treating her the way she'd have been treated. You know, he apparently had started smoking marijuana in the service
Oh.
and everything, and so he got into drugs, and that was really what
Tipped the scale.
Mm.
yeah, that,
Well, I'm glad she had the sense to leave him.
yep. It's like I said, it's like when I left Jackman, it was just so difficult for me. And I knew it was better for the kids.
Now, why did you and Jackman break up? Just because, I mean, was there
Well,
something that triggered it?
When he was living with somebody when we met,
Uh-huh.
and he sent me a dozen roses after we had our first date. He told me about the fact that he was living with a girl and that he didn't want to proceed with dating me until he had taken care of the girl, gotten her settled in either that apartment or something like that. And things were happening that I thought was really strange when I finally left him. And I was thinking that he had found another girl and it was going to be sort of the same thing. And so after a few things happened that made me suspicious, and the kids really weren't doing that well, because Jackman was not he was lovey-dovey to me, but the kids were
Not a father figure.
yeah, and he'd buy them stuff. I mean, but a kid can only, and he just wasn't.
Want sincere love and affection rather than stuff.
Yeah, and I decided I better get out of it because if he had somebody else, that I didn't want to go through that hassle and everything. And so he filed for divorce, and then he got married right after. So, and it was somebody that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was what I suspected. It all started with a weekend of golf. And he was telling me about this golf tournament. And normally, if I say, oh, I'd like to go too, he'd say, just great, and everything like that. And he said no, that it was a men's tournament, and it wouldn't, And I said, well, there's other stuff to do in Palm Springs, and I'd really like to go down there. And when he left, he says, now don't go down there. And it was just so obvious to me that something was going on. And so anyway.
Because I remember when you were first dating, he was treating you like a queen.
Oh God, he was, yeah. I'm glad I had him, because he taught me that I deserved, Bill didn't think I deserved anything. And Jackman, he just did everything he could to make me happy until it came to the golf tournament. And then there were other things that, we go out and watch football on Monday nights at the local bar, and that sort of dropped off, and he would meet the guys to play pool and everything. And so I just
red flags.
Life's too short to be miserable.
Yeah.
Very true.
And when I'm miserable, my children are miserable. And so that was the hardest trip.
Going to Colorado.
Yeah, Dad flew out to drive the U-Haul, and so I took just what I needed. I took my dinnerware, but I bought him, dinnerware.
A replacement.
To replace it, and I took the kids' stuff. I didn't take anything for myself. So the kids had a dresser and a bed and stuff like that, and then Mom and Dad helped me buy a sofa bed. that's what I slept on. That, think of that sofa bed. It was so heavy, and they were trying to get it up on the second floor.
Oh, geez.
Oh, gee, and it didn't go just straight. You know, it had to go loop like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're hanging out.
Yeah.
You have to pivot. Yeah.
Now, where did you move to when you moved from California to back to Colorado? Where were you near Mom and Dad's apartment? Were you?
Actually, when we first moved, we lived with Grandma and Grandpa because I had to find a job.
Right, okay.
And so I found a job, and they lived in a condo,
Uh-huh.
and there were apartments. It's sort of like this thing here.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And so we got an apartment, but
Right there.
we were within, you know, a quarter mile of Mom and Dad, which I wanted because the kids would be unsupervised.
Mhm.
And so if anything happened, I wanted, you know,
Within
to have,
running distance.
yeah. So anyway, that worked out really well. And then
We had good parents.
we had
I
wonderful
mean, not
parents.
as good as mine, but you know.
You're so silly. No, but we did. We had great parents until Mom started breaking down mentally.
Yeah.
And
Which
I was a selfish brat. It was my teenage years, and I was horrible. And I don't know whether I contributed to, you know, she was just never happy.
And she never could make a decision. Dad would say, you know, do you want to go to pizza or Chinese?
that's the Canadian again. It's
You
you
know,
want other
and
people to be
She
happy.
just would not make a decision. I mean, it was really weird. That was the one thing that, towards the end, I always thought was sort of strange. Oh, those were terrible times. You know, she had a nervous breakdown in New Jersey.
Yeah. I found out, I figured that out when I was a grown up.
Yeah.
I remember she got so drunk one night
Oh, gee.
that Dad had to, she stopped breathing, and Dad had to give her
Resuscitate her.
breath resuscitation. And
Wow.
he got her going, and then she started vomiting up the.
She couldn't drink, and that, you know, just. There
Wow.
was another time that she just sat and hugged the toilet all night.
Hmm.
I remember, you know, checking on her because I was worried that she didn't want anybody around her.
No, thank you.
And it seemed to me, whatever she wanted, Dad did. I mean, she wanted to move to California, so they moved to California, figured out a way to move to California, kind of thing. And then she wasn't happy there. It seemed to me she was happier in New Jersey than anywhere else because she had
Her friend.
the friends,
Established.
and the square dance club, and all that. But then Dad was the caller, so Mom just sat around. You know, she wasn't
Dancing, active in
dancing,
it.
and and it's looking back on it. Of course, I didn't have any idea when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Why did she want to move to California?
She had lived here when she was a young woman and had liked
Happy
it. And I
men.
think she was beautiful, and she had a lot of attention paid to her, I think. And
She had a lot of friends. They liked to climb mountains
and rocks,
and stuff like that.
motorcycles. And then she met Dad in New Jersey, And they got married.
How did they meet?
Well, there's two versions of this story.
Well, let's hear them both, and I'll decide.
One is that Dad was at Dad and Uncle Don, Aunt Pauline's husband, worked together, and Dad was over at Uncle Don's. He's married to Aunt Pauline, and Dad saw Mom's portrait headshot at Aunt Pauline's, and he looked at her and he said, "I'm going to marry her." And Aunt Pauline just laughed her head off
Yeah,
and
right.
said, "She will never have anything to do with you."
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. and then I think, I don't know, did she get a job where Dad worked at?
Aunt Pauline got her a job at Tampon,
Yeah.
and Dad worked there.
And so one of Dad's ha-ha lines was, "I picked up a tampon and there she was." Kind of thing, because she was working on the line, I guess, and he was a mechanic for it. And
Honestly, I can see both of those happening.
that's the other version. But
Like I said, whatever, they came together.
and I know she didn't know how old he was until
I love that story.
until he was not
Drafted.
drafted, but
Pre-drafted.
he enlisted. You had the choice of waiting till your number came up, or you could enlist
And
in some place you
enlisted.
wanted to.
Yeah.
You could pick which.
Service.
Nah.
And he decided that the Navy
Had the better food. I
had
remember that.
better food, and if you got wet in the Navy, you were going down with the ship or something, and the soldiers suffered so much from slogging here and there and everywhere, and just being in miserable mud conditions and stuff.
So Grandma opened up his papers and.
Yeah, she opened his enlistment papers and she brought him in and she said, "You've gotta."
They made a mistake.
Big mistake. And he said, "No, there's no mistake in it." And she said, "Well, they have you listed as being born in 1916. And he said, "Well, that's right." She said, "I was born in 1910. And he said, "Well, that's right." She said, "You're 6 years younger than I am." And he went, "That's right."
Why did you tell me?
Yeah, exactly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Well, if I had told you, would you have married me?"
No!
But they had you before he left for the service.
Yeah.
How old were you? You were a toddler, weren't you?
Probably about 2. Because I can remember when this went on, Mom just crying uncontrollably, and I couldn't understand it.
Because he was leaving or because he was younger?
No, because
Probably
he
both.
was going in the service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a reason anyone did that.
No.
Mommy wanted a divorce.
Why?
She wanted a divorce, and Dad, excuse me,
Do you need a drink?
that one, thank you. I think that's cause.
Just give her a second.
Anyway,
Was she?
she was unhappy.
Her mental problem was starting, I'll betcha.
So he told me that he knew he couldn't support she and I and himself
If they got divorced.
if they got divorced. And he didn't want her not to live the way she had while we were married. So if he joined the service,
He was taken care of.
he was taken care of, and money would be sent to her, and me to take care of us. And Dad came to Colorado when he was on a leave one time, because I only saw him once after he left. And they decided that they would try it again when he got out he got out of the service. So, you know, as I said,
Now,
And then
what
she
I
occurred.
understood was, he said, but it doesn't sound right because of the time, the era, was that if they got a divorce, he would get you. He would take you, you know. She could have her divorce, but you were his child, kind of thing. So
well, that would sound. I mean, to me, that sounds
plausible. And
because she'd been married 2 times before.
now she'd been married to Ralph DeGrave, and that's where Dolores was, the baby. And then who was she married to?
I can't remember his name.
Okay, but then so Ralph was first, then
Number
Unknown
2
was second, and then Dad was third. Right?
No, she was married before Ralph.
Oh, Ralph was second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like a French name or something, you know, but they got married and he was just a bad choice because he was a thief.
Oh.
And
Ralph wasn't the thief,
No.
it was the first guy.
no, he was the bigamist.
Ralph was a
Jeez.
bigamist?
Yeah.
Boy, Mom sure picked him.
Uh.
She got it right the third time.
Well, I
though.
think the thing is, Grandpa picked her that
Yeah.
time, so that's probably why.
No, she married him. He was in the service, you know, and she was like 17 or something.
He looked good in a uniform.
And a guy in a uniform. And he was very suave and everything. But if they would go to somebody's house, one of her friends' house, and play cards or, you know, whatever they did in those days, and things would disappear
Oh.
from their house.
My goodness.
And so he got arrested,
Hmm.
you know, for robbery. And so she got divorced from him. And,
Then what about the bigamist?
the bigamist. Well, she had a baby with him, and they separated. The baby died, and I don't think there was really any love between them. It was probably sex more than anything. And Dad made them get married, or Grandpa made them get married because she was pregnant.
Shotgun wedding.
And so anyway, the baby died, and he wouldn't give her a divorce. And, you know, they were separated and everything, and she couldn't get a divorce. And she said that one day one of her friends called and said, Dorothy, she says, Ralph's married. And it was the list, you know, of marriages like that, stuff like that. And he had married somebody legally. So she got in touch with him, and of course.
It's like, excuse me.
Do you want to give me a divorce now, or do you want to go to jail? And so he gave her the divorce.
Wow.
Now that he was in, this all happened in Colorado, right?
Wow.
Which is good reason to go to New Jersey.
Yeah, and then she went and lived with Aunt Pauline in New Jersey.
I don't know whether they lived together or not. I imagine they did.
Yeah.
I don't really think that I've ever heard anything in a discussion. I know that Don and Pauline and Mom and Dad, you know, well, Aunt Pauline and Uncle Don went to Atlantic City when Mom and Dad got married.
Things I never knew.
Why did they go to Atlantic City?
I don't know.
Gambling?
I mean, they just,
That was just a place to go, I guess.
okay, they weren't, okay, because I had
I mean-
Mom and Dad marrying in Maryland.
Well, maybe they did, but they went to Atlantic City,
Okay.
so I don't know whether that was a 2-day honeymoon.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe
You know,
honeymoon.
what the,
She's got a picture of Dad on the bed. because he had been up for like 48 hours because he had to drive to Maryland so that they wouldn't have the waiting.
Get married right away.
Yeah, the 3-day wait or
Like
whatever.
in Las Vegas, they do it.
Yeah.
You know. But
Then they went back up, and he had worked like
He
double
worked-
shifts
yeah.
before that, so he could have the time off and have money, you know, to pay the
Splurge on his new wife.
yeah.
by the time he
Wow.
got done driving, he was
Pooped.
pooped.
And I don't know whether Uncle Don and Pauline, whether they were with them when, you know, as the witnesses. Did they go?
No, they weren't witnesses. It's not on the marriage certificate anyway. They weren't witnesses.
Because, as I said, there's a picture of Uncle Don and Aunt Pauline standing on this boardwalk that was in those pictures that I gave you. So they had gone down for the weekend.
But was Pauline? I don't know what their wedding date was, so I don't know if they were already married when Mom and Dad got married. Or...
I don't know either, because it brought to mind that I just, on that section of time, I don't know when they got married. I don't know.
I'll have to go check that out. See when they got married.
Yeah, it's, I know that they stuck around together as, you know,
Yeah, they were friends.
yeah.
Mom and Pauline were real close as sisters, and so Dad and Don hung around with each other while Mom and Pauline,
Goofed off.
did their thing.
Had girl times. Girl trip.
I don't even know how long it was between the time Dad met Mom and when they got married.
I don't know either.
Couldn't have been too long.
And then Sheila is younger than you by 2 years, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years.
You were born in 48.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was 3 years younger than myself. Maybe 2 years.
Do you remember if Uncle Don was in the service during the war?
Do I know if he was?
Yeah.
I think so.
Don't think so.
No.
And it was interesting because I Googled his name, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I thought I would find a whole bunch of tennis trophy, you know,
Yeah.
first places and things like that. And I didn't find anything on him, but they had trophies all over the house.
I know. And I know, you know, because we used to go down to Buclo Park while he played tennis,
To where?
you know, and
To what park?
Hugo.
Buclo. That's what, I don't think that's the real name. I
Mhm.
think that's
The street
what
or
I
something.
heard.
Oh.
And it's still there,
Mhm.
because I remember seeing it, and that's when I realized that I was calling it the wrong thing.
Uh-huh.
But I can't remember
Yeah,
what the real thing was. But he played tennis all the time.
Yeah, well, he was a tennis pro, wasn't he? I mean, that was his job
No,
after.
no. I mean, after he retired, he could have been, you know, in that particular area, but he worked at Calco,
That's right.
and then there was something, and it affected his lungs from when he was working at Calco.
Mm-hmm.
And so he stopped working and was probably collecting disability and
Mhm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then Aunt Pauline worked the whole time. I remember.
Yeah,
She was the lunch lady.
and she was the head lunch lady.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyway, between the two of them, they were able to.
One of my large memories is her putting an extra can of water when she reconstituted
Oh.
the grape juice.
Welch's grape juice is the best grape juice in the world. But when you put an extra cup of water in it, it's
I
not-
heard that taking a swig and going.
Vaguely grape
Something's
flavored
wrong,
water.
Yeah. something's
always having Velveeta.
wrong. Velveeta
Oh,
grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yes.
now those are good.
And
I hate Velveeta.
oh, do you? Oh shoot! I like it as a grilled cheese sandwich. I haven't had it.
Yeah, I
in
was gonna
years
say
and years
it's
and
so
years.
rare that we. That's why we probably like it because now I want a Velveeta grilled cheese sandwich.
Well, you can't have one because we're gonna go to BJ's.
Well, I'll get some Velveeta when we get home.
But that was one of the things. The other thing I remember is getting together with them on alternate Thanksgivings. They do one year, we do the next year. And Christmas was a separate occasion, it seems to me. We didn't do Christmas together. Grandpa Hogarth came to our house on Christmas Eve, and we'd open our presents then, other than the ones from Santa. And but we did we do Christmas dinner with them? We did.
Mhm.
Okay, so one I remember is Thanksgiving dinner and doing it with, I guess because we always watched the Laurel and Hardy
Wooden
Babes.
soldiers.
Babes in
And
Toyland.
Macy's Day Parade on
Mhm, yeah.
Thanksgiving. But I think that it was a larger group of people that
I know Uncle Don's relatives.
Bunny was the only one that I remember.
Bunny,
Mhm. And that was Uncle Don's adopted
brother.
brother. And I don't remember meeting Uncle Don's mom and dad, as far as I know. And it was uncles and, you know, maybe nieces and nephews and stuff. And Grandpa built a table.
That
Because
stretched all the way. That's right. I
Mhm.
remember
Yeah.
that now. You said that.
And there were so many of us.
Stretched from the
Living room to
From
the,
the
to the
living room
kitchen,
into the
dining room or something.
It built
like-
the whole room. You know,
Nice.
you had just enough
room to scoot
you know,
around
get
it.
But
Now that's
then they had the children's table, which
Oh,
was
of
a
course.
separate table
of course.
in another room,
Mm.
I think it was. And it those were so much fun.
Yeah.
And all us girls would get to bed, you know, after dinner, and we'd have to wash dishes and put them away. And the men were out there sleeping or watching
football.
games.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then the girls would all go for a walk.
Yeah, we go down to the boathouse on the
Yes.
lake.
And then we'd go up. Do you remember picking raspberries?
No.
There's a road, and there were I think they were raspberries. No, they weren't blueberries.
No,
Maybe
that
they
was
were
in
blackberries,
Canada.
I don't know. But they had these bushes, you know, with berries on it, and we'd go and pick those berries.
One for me, one for the basket.
1, 2 for
Two
me.
for me,
Two for the basket.
I don't think so. We ate so much.
Oh,
Thanksgiving, that's true. Man, I wish I could have Thanksgiving dinner like I remember the
the big long table
dinners they
full of
had. Yeah, the
people.
just everything was so delicious. Everything was so good. The turkey,
Yeah, the turkey would be so big that, you know, we really had to measure it before we buy it to make sure that
it would
Fit
go
in the oven, yeah.
And they put the stuffing in the turkey. I remember that. And now you're not supposed to do that, but stuffing muffins are okay. But I just loved the turkey, and then turkey, mashed potatoes, peas.
pickled beets.
Yes. Oh, yes. celery stuffed with Old English cheese.
Bread. Yeah.
Olives and pickles.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I knew you like the black olives.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, you just ate until you,
Popped.
yeah, exactly. You laid down.
So your button flies off your pants.
Do you remember when Dad broke that dish?
No.
It was one of the,
Wait! He was cutting his turkey.
and the plate broke in half.
He was
And it-
cutting it, and it just,
Gave out.
And it was China, and
Oh.
it was good china.
yeah. It's
But
too
it
bad.
must have had a flaw
Yeah,
in
I was
it
gonna say.
because he didn't.
He didn't do it on purpose
Very
or anything.
large surprised face on him.
Did I do that?
Exactly. And gravy running all over the table.
Oh.
It was just a mess. It was excessively full.
Mhm.
I have doubt. And you remember him and Uncle Don going to the restaurant where it was like an 8-course meal?
That
And
was a smorgasbord.
it was a smorgasbord. And they had dinner there, and Uncle Don looked at the waitress and said, "I'll have another one." And she, said, "Drink, water, or what?" He said, "No, I want another meal." Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Did Dad go in on that too? And
Probably. I don't remember. I remember, him, Uncle Don asking for it. I don't know whether Dad, he probably did because they always
were
sort
in
of
contests.
had a contest on who
Egg
ate
each
the
other
most
on.
or could stuff their mouth.
I remember the waitress's look though. You want what? Another
Surprise,
one,
disbelief
another
kind of
one.
thing.
Yeah. Matt.
Yeah, Matt could do that.
He was a Matt person. As far as-
I keep telling Matt that he's gonna love hanging out with Grandpa someday when we get to heaven. He's really gonna
on the other side.
get a
of
kick
the
out of
mountain.
him.
But yeah, that it was a the smorgasbord I remember was a Swedish smorgasbord, and it had Swedish meatballs and shrimp, boiled shrimp, not fried or anything
Yeah.
like that. It was just laying there, ready to grab and eat.
And I think they
Thousands
ate
of
all the
them.
shrimp, and I think that they were not really welcome after that, because they had just completely wiped
Wiped him out.
certain things that were supposed to be for everybody. And then, do you remember the pizza place? in Bethbrook?
On the main street and I remember also the Italian restaurant. It was like D'Angelo's or something like that. Do you remember what the name of the pizza place was?
What?
I
I'll
remember.
probably think of it later because
Mhm.
when I took that 5,000 mile trip to Colorado, from Colorado to New Jersey, and
Was it
I
still
found,
there?
I found it,
Ah!
but it wasn't open.
Mm.
It was maybe a Sunday or something like that, and I was so disappointed. And so I went across the river, and there was this restaurant, and it was in a house.
Mm-hmm.
So many of those Italian restaurants were in houses. And had a pretty good pizza there. It was really, I wanted to go back to the old one to see. And Veals wasn't there anymore.
Veals?
Veals.
That I think was the Italian restaurant was it Italian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the one I was thinking
Yeah.
of.
They had a bar in the front, and
Uh-huh.
then, the restaurant
And
and
some
that.
restaurants.
That was,
They had good spaghetti.
but they're not there anymore. Matter of fact, there's that whole section now is all Asian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. When I went back, I looked for, like Carvel's, that was gone. But there was a diner, a New Jersey diner in the trailer kind of looking thing. And
Bakery was still there.
was it? I didn't see that. I mean, I didn't. Yeah, I want crumb cakes. And they have the little Debbie crumb cakes, but they're not crumb
the
cakes.
same.
They're not, well, crumb buns is what I want. And we went to, after Dad died, I went back to New Jersey to do some genealogy stuff. And my friend Diane, her mom lived back there, so we met back there. And I said, well, let's go to this New Jersey diner. And I looked at the menu and they had chipped beef on toast. And so I got chipped beef on toast. And I took the first bite of it and I started crying. The waitress was going, are you all right? Oh, yes, I love chipped beef on toast. Because it was something Dad always made.
It's memory food.
It cracked me. And Diane's, her eyes are kind of welling up a little too, because I'm crying my brains out. I love chipped beef on toast.
Diners still give you so much food you can't eat it.
Yeah.
Because I had found a diner when I was driving around. And I don't remember what it was that I ordered, but it was like for a Mack truck driver.
Yeah.
I got to thinking about it to remember that, they always seem to just have huge portions.
Yeah. If you were going to go out to eat.
But the bakery was still there. Belmar's or something like that.
I don't remember. I remember the bakery, but I don't remember what the name was.
Anyway, it's still there. I picked up, when I went back, not the drive one, but once I flew back for a class reunion. And when I came back home, I had bought, a cheesecake and hard rolls.
Yes.
Just all the stuff that
You can't get anywhere else.
And the hard rolls, I forget where I ended up going to, but it's wherever the Jewish community
Right.
moved after the Asian influx and everything. And I bought these hard rolls. And by the time I got them, didn't know it, but I had fallen, I had broken my elbow.
Oh.
And here I'm carrying all this
All
stuff,
these groceries.
and I'm telling this airline stewardess and everything, now this has to be held up flat because it's a cheesecake and, and crumb rolls and hard rolls and everything. And I was so disappointed because by the time I got with the broken elbow, and having to carry them back and forth, and they were so hard you couldn't even eat them. It was awful. And I had gone to so much trouble to make sure that everything was packed perfectly into this, carry thing, and but the cheesecake was good.